That participant number is climbing rapidly, so I'm going to wait just a couple minutes. Okay, I think I'm going to go ahead and get started. It looks like the participant number is capping off a little bit, and it's about to be a couple minutes after 7, so I'll go ahead and get us rolling. Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us at the 2021 SGA Executive Candidate Debate. My name is Jack Henry Decker, and I am the chairman of the Elections Committee this year for the Student Government Association. We are thrilled to be hosting this event with the Georgia Political Review and all of our remarkable executive candidates. Campaigning for SGA elections began this Monday and extends until next Wednesday at noon, with voting happening from next Monday to Wednesday. As with all things this year, we know the format looks a little bit different, but we have worked with GPR tirelessly to ensure that this debate allows for each of our executive tickets to tell you all a little bit about themselves and make the case for why they are the best suited to lead the student body. I want to extend my sincerest thank you on behalf of the Student Government Association, to our moderators, to the GPR for co-hosting this with us, to all of our amazing executive candidates, to the SGA advisors who have worked so hard and helping us get this set up, and of course to everyone here watching tonight, which as of right now is over 180 people, which is very, very exciting, and certainly something that we're amped about. So thank you all very much for being here. It should be a wonderful evening. Without any further ado, I'm going to step back and I'm going to hand things over to Ian Allen, the editor-in-chief of the Georgia Political Review.
Thank you, Jack Henry. I am on mute. I'm ready to go. All right. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the 2021 SGA debate at UGA. My name is Ian Allen, and just like Jack Henry said, I am the editor-in-chief of the Georgia Political Review on campus. And before we begin with the candidates' opening statements, I'm going to go over some of the rules for tonight's debate. Right off the bat, there will be absolutely no name calling, no profanity, no slurs. And please wait until it's your ticket's turn to speak and do not interrupt other debaters or the moderators. Be respectful of all time limits. And finally, aggressive or intimidating behavior from debaters and or the audience will not be allowed and will serve as grounds for removal from debate. These rules have been previously agreed upon by all parties, and everyone in attendance this evening is expected to abide by these rules. So moving on to the debate structure, the questions for the debate can be split into two categories: general questions and directed questions. General questions are asked to all campaign tickets, and each campaign will get exactly 2 minutes to respond. Directed questions are asked to a particular campaign, and the campaign ticket will also have 2 minutes to respond to that question. All campaigns will be given equal speaking time during the debate. Rebuttals are only allowed if a campaign directly invokes another campaign or mentions a candidate directly by name. If they end up being needed, they will last 60 seconds. Now I'm going to go ahead and introduce the main moderator for tonight's debate, Marshall Burton. Marshall is a junior at UGA, majoring in finance, international business, and international affairs. He is the operations director for the Georgia Political Review, and he uses he, him, his pronouns. Marshall, you take it away.
Thank you so much, Ian, for that great introduction. Before we dive into the opening statements for this evening, I'm going to first introduce the 3 executive tickets we have running for this election. So first, we have the bridge ticket. Jeremiah DeSesto is a second-year International Affairs and Management Information Systems major from Davao City, Philippines. He uses he, him, his pronouns and is running for president. Vying for vice president is Hannah Rose Bassan, a second-year biology major with minors in International Affairs and Nutritional Sciences. Hannah Rose uses she, her pronouns and is from Johannesburg, South Africa. And finally, we have Obamide Semaye, a second-year economics major from Lagos, Nigeria. And Obamide uses he, him pronouns and is running for treasurer. So that is the bridge ticket. Next, we have the belong ticket. Carter Marks is a third-year management and economics major from St. Simons Island, Georgia. He uses he, him pronouns and is running for president. Next, we have Jasmine Gresham, a third-year health and physical education major from Stockbridge, Georgia. Jasmine uses she, her pronouns and is running for vice president. And finally, as a part of the belong ticket, we have Shelley Chumar, a second-year biology major from Marietta, Georgia. Shelley uses she, her pronouns and is running for treasurer. And so that was the belong ticket. Finally, we have the voice ticket. Running for president on the voice ticket is Casey Smith, a third-year International Affairs and Romance Languages major from Augusta, Georgia. Casey uses she, her pronouns. Running for vice president is Will Harris, a third-year International Affairs major from Atlanta, Georgia, and Will uses he, him pronouns. Finally, we have Charlotte Wang. Charlotte is a third-year mathematics education major from Cumming, Georgia, and she uses she, her pronouns. That, again, was the voice ticket. So those are the three tickets that we have running in this SGA election. Each campaign will now have 2 minutes for opening statements. We will start with the bridge campaign, followed by the belong campaign, and then the voice campaign. So each campaign has 2 minutes. We'll start with bridge. Thank you.
Let me start by answering the question that everyone wants to know. Who are we? Our story spans 3 countries, the Philippines, Nigeria, and South Africa. The 3 of us have used our backgrounds as immigrants to seek the best in people and to learn how our differences are what make each student at this university valuable to the community as a whole. As immigrants and as students, the values of resilience, strength, courage, and hope are the morals that represent us. Resilience over defeat, strength over challenges, courage over opposition, and hope over fear. As students, we need to lean on these morals. Hannah Rose, Oba, and I are running for SGA to ensure that students live at a university that cultivates a safe, equitable, and community-based culture, one that amplifies the perspectives on campus that have been quieted since they arrived. We want to bridge the gaps that we see at this university. We aim to do this by creating a student government that serves the students and faculty that it represents. Our platform was created by and for students on this campus. We want to stop using wisdom, justice, and moderation as meaningless buzzwords and to prove that wisdom can stem from the youngest person in the room. Justice must be equitable in order for it to actually affect change. That moderation can truly move mountains. So like my hero John Lewis did in Selma, Alabama, let's march across that bridge for change together. Let's amplify the voices of all students on this campus. And when my future daughter attends this university 20 or 30 years from now, that her success isn't judged by her last name or the color of her skin or her gender, by the content of her mind and her willingness to spark change. Let's bridge this campus UGA. We are stronger together.
Thank you. We'll now move to the belong tickets opening statement.
Hey everybody, my name is Carter Marks and I use he, him pronouns.
Hey everyone, my name is Shelley Chamar and I use she, her pronouns.
Hi everyone, my name is Jasmine. I use she, her pronouns, and I want to thank you all so much for taking some time out of your night to hear about why Carter, Shelley, and I are here. We are here for one main reason, and that is because we see a better vision for SGA. Over the past few months, we've met with various organizations and student leaders to ask about what SGA can do for them. The follow-up majority of the time was, what does SGA even do? That is a question that we are determined that no one will have to ask under our administration. We envision SGA whose main goal is outreach and accessibility. We should be reaching out to student organizations to offer them resources to assist wherever needed and working with them to make students more aware of the changes happening on campus. Collaboration is a key to the work that we plan on doing. Isolation with no conversation does not benefit anyone but those that are already in power. Collaboration pushed students to create the Project Red to install tampon dispensers in bathrooms on campus. Collaboration sparked the creation of the Minority Student Science Association and turned into the largest minority-based pre-health organization on campus. In addition, a large part of the reason that Shelly Carter and I are running is that we believe in advocating for every Bulldog, with particular emphasis on underrepresented and marginalized communities. We want to advocate for increased awareness of the gender-neutral bathrooms on campus. We want to advocate for all UGA-branded accounts to have closed captioning on any and all videos. We are going to make sure that UGA is a space for all students with actions, not just words. I say all this to say, we realize we cannot be the voice of every student on this campus. UGA is too diverse to be spoken for by just 3 students. We simply want to bridge the gap between SGA and student body so that every student feels like they belong. As you listen to us today, I hope you can see the anger, love, and appreciation we have for UGA as we discuss how to make every student on campus feel like they belong. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll now move to the Voice Tickets opening statement. You have 2 minutes.
Good evening. When thinking about the ways I could open this debate tonight, I reflected on the ways strong women on campus have shaped my UGA experience and led me to this virtual stage. As the only female presidential candidate to run in this election, I feel the weight on my shoulders and a responsibility to speak on behalf of those who have not been heard. And that is the very foundation for our ticket. As current Chief of Staff, I realize that it is no longer acceptable to simply demand a seat at the table. We demand that our voice is heard. And in rooms where invitations have not been granted, our administration will break barriers so that students themselves can sit in the room where it happens. So tonight, I am dedicating our debate to the thousands of women on our campus who are demanding that their voices is heard as well. To them, I say you are loved, valued, but most importantly, respected. It is time that our voices are heard and empowered so that those who will walk in our footsteps when they graduate feel heard too. And to the women who walked this path before me on executive tickets, Charlene, Rachel, Melissa, and Cheryl, your voices have guided me here today. From Senate to Cabinet to now running on our own executive ticket, we will seek to amplify your voice so that you can speak on behalf of yourself. Thank you.
Thank you. We will now begin this debate by asking 4 general questions that will be answered by each campaign. And specifically, they will be answered by the campaign's vice presidents. My first question for this evening, again addressing all 3 campaigns, is what will your administration do to help the student body smoothly transition from mostly online learning to in-person classes as vaccine distribution increases in the next year? We will start with the bridge ticket, followed by the belong ticket, and then the voice ticket. Hannah, you are on mute. Hannah, you are on mute. Hannah, you are on mute right now. Can you please unmute yourself?
I apologize. I'm so sorry. I shall restart.
No problem. Ian, will you reset?
I have to admit that for me, the transition to online classes has been really difficult as I'm not the best on technology, and my younger sister, who's 11 years old, had to teach me some of the ins and outs on Zoom. So I really relate to these experiences that all students are having on campus with the transition to online classes. And in our conversations with students over the last few months, a lot of students have expressed frustration at the fact that there's not a lot of consistency between the different colleges at UGA. We want to make sure that the University of Georgia has a united front on how they are responding to COVID-19 guidelines. Every single student in every single college in every class should have the same reaction from professors if there's a COVID-19 case in the classroom, or if there's a COVID-19 case and they need to alert students. It needs to be uniform. That is really, really important to us. And we also just want to make sure that with this transition to online classes, we are all online all the time. And if you are in the Miller Learning Center and your laptop dies, you don't have a charger, honestly, you're screwed. So we want to make sure that the EITS desk is able to provide technological appliances for longer periods of time and work with them to make sure that you can have easy access to those rental technology services. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll now hear from the Belong ticket.
So as we continue to go through this pandemic and we see that there will probably be more of a vaccine distribution for everyone, and we see that transition to in-person classes, I think it is important to note that probably not every student will still feel comfortable coming to campus. And that is, I think, when we really promote the Disability Resource Center. I have talked with Erin Benson, the director of the Disability Resource Center, and she has said that the DRC, for short, has had more people contact them with accommodations in this past year than any other year ever. And so I think it's really important to point students into that resource so that way they can feel as comfortable as possible when it comes to transitioning into in-person learning. Also, I think we need to also probably talk about how Zoom will most likely not be going anywhere. So I think it's really important when we transition to in-person learning that we still provide that option of Zoom, of like making sure that we have those Zoom spaces in academic buildings, more so not just in an MLC, but also in various libraries. That way students still have those spaces where they can interact with classes in a proper manner as well.
Great, thank you. We'll now hear from the Voice ticket.
Excellent. Those all sound like great ideas, and I'm happy to hear from the other candidates. So what Voice's plan is, first of all, I recently just became an orientation leader, and everyone who knows me knows that first years are close to my heart. So the first thing that we got to do is we got to get in there. We got to speak to admin. We got to speak to the Board of Regents to figure out what transition looks like. Okay, because we know that currently, as it stands, these college entrance exams, the SAT, the ACT, they're being foregone right now, and we're letting students in. But what does this look like for the future of UGA? Is this going to be a permanent thing? How are we going to re-implement these already sort of like oppressive entrance exams, because we know that not all students have equitable access to education before that. So what does this look like moving forward for us? Second of all, we're going to fight for new students and students who wanted to get the vaccine so that we can get back to some normalcy as we move past COVID-19 and return to like a normal sort of like class setup, because we've had a lot of lessons that we've learned throughout this thing. And let me tell you, I've talked to administrators and they're getting it. And they're making sure that they get there. So it's time the students, we get ours. So we got to fight for students getting this vaccine. We got to get ourselves back out onto these streets safely. But more than anything, we have to make sure the students are being safe and that the transition is seamless. All right. Zoom it works, but it's not necessarily the most equitable system. I don't know if y'all out there are on Responder's lockdown browser, but I know it's real hard to take a test when you've got a webcam breathing down your neck. And it's even harder if you don't necessarily you can't afford the best equipment, the best webcam, the most quality things. And now your test is being stopped every 5 minutes because your webcam is not being detected by the software. So we know that in-person classes and things like that are a little bit more equitable and a little bit more accessible for our students. But also, let's not spend time, let's learn from the lessons that we've taken here, and let's actually adapt to like our new, sort of setup so that students don't have to waste so much time on books, software, and things like that. And let's move forward. And we're going to stay in the Board of Regents and admin's face about that so we can make sure students get what they need.
Thank you. My next question, again, for all 3 tickets is as follows. COVID-19 has presented many challenges for students, particularly underclassmen and transfer students who may not have fully acclimated to life at UGA under these unique circumstances. What steps will your administration take to ensure that these students are able to more fully adjust to UGA and get involved on campus? We will start with the Voice ticket, followed by the Bridge ticket, and then finally the Belong ticket. So Voice, you have 2 minutes.
Yes, and I'm glad you asked, because if you know me, you know I love dog camp, and student transition is one of my favorite things in the world. And let me tell you, I've heard countless times where students come to administrators and they refer them to me and they're like, hey, this student is having trouble transitioning. And that's the worst thing I've ever heard, because, you know, like the people in the community has been one of the biggest aspects of my college experience. And while we have programs like Dog Camp, shout out Dog Camp, and new student orientation, you know, that facilitate this transition, you know, they only last so long. So SGA, I see SGA as a means to actually sort of like facilitate more transition. You know, we have programming and we have resources all across campus. So why not have SGA be a facilitator of that thing? That's one thing I've worked on with my committee, equity, diversity, and inclusion within the Senate. You know, I've created liaisons and partnerships with other like offices on campus, such as multicultural services and programs, the EOO, LGBT Resource Center, and International Student Life, so that we can better connect students with these things. And one of the biggest things for me is student care and outreach. You know, a lot of times with the way things are set up and students are so isolated, our mental health kind of suffers sometimes. So where does a student go when they're having a hard time, they have hardships, they just can't do it, you know? And we have student care and outreach, but a lot of students don't even know the process for that. So SGA needs to be a facilitator for this transition. And that is something that we're going to do. And we're going to actually see it through so that students can get what they need.
Great, thank you. We now have the bridge ticket with the same question.
I'm glad that you asked this question, because over the last few weeks, as we have been adjusting to in-person classes, I've met a lot of transfer students who have just said that it has been really difficult coming in and not knowing what to do and how to get involved. And student government plays a huge role in that. And something we are passionate about is bridging that gap between student government and students, and just making sure that transfer students have a way to get involved and actually have their voice be presented within student government, so that they can come and say, hey, this has been really difficult for me. How can you help us out? And we really want to do that and make sure that they know exactly how they can get involved in student government when they first arrive at UGA, so that we have their voice there. We also want to make sure that a lot of small organizations have really suffered during this time. I know I'm a part of International Coffee Hour, and normally there's a huge turnout when there's in-person International Coffee Hour. And now that it is virtual, every Friday there's about 15 to 20 students. And in speaking to the director of International Student Life, Mr. Justin Jeffrey, just the importance of making sure that small organizations are having their resources spread around campus in a way that students still remain involved. And as we slowly transition back to in-person, we want to make sure that those organizations are getting reach, so that people can understand how important they are. And we want to make sure that we have a $500 cross-cultural collaboration, so that those small organizations, those multicultural organizations, are getting an additional $500 on top of what they're already given to promote the events and get their information known and spread around campus. Thank you.
Thank you. And finally, the belong ticket.
As a resident assistant in Myers Hall, I have direct contact with underclassmen and transfer students that are affected by COVID-19. I have 61 students that I am currently over right now, and I would say probably about 40 or 50 out of those 60 students are first-year students or transfer students at the University of Georgia. So I've seen firsthand how COVID-19 has affected them in their transition from whatever college they may have come from, or also from like high school, and how they really have not been able to integrate into UGA's environment as well as they might have been if we were in person. However, I have found that creating those organic and intentional conversations with them, and also providing spaces where they can mingle with each other in a safe way, has been very effective in that effort to make sure that they feel more comfortable. I'm lucky enough that I have Carter, our presidential candidate, on my side, and he was an orientation leader this past summer. So he was able to actually talk with these students before they even came into UGA as they were transitioning into COVID-19. And something that we discussed was making sure that we created those in-person experiences for them with the vaccine distribution coming out. And we hope to do that by doing a sophomore series. So our sophomore series is hopefully will be influenced in the fall, COVID-19 pending. And that will be an experience where sophomores that were affected by the COVID-19 pandemic will be able to recreate the Super G the same day as the first year students, and transfer students will also be able to participate in this as well. And they'll be able to really get those student experiences again that they lack. And also with when it comes to making sure that student experiences are maintained and that cultural organizations also don't get impacted by this, the diversity fund already exists, and it can give a cultural organization up to $500 to be able to do those cultural initiatives that they want anytime that they want to. And it's existed for a few years. It's through the Office of Vice President of Student Affairs. So I'm very excited to also amplify that as well to make sure that those students get those experiences too.
Great, thank you. My next question again will be for all 3 tickets. How do you plan to promote diversity, equity, and inclusion in your administration's priorities and goals? We will start with the Belong ticket, followed by the Voice ticket, and then the Bridge ticket.
Diversity, equity, and inclusion is something that I am incredibly passionate about, but we cannot have discussion without recognizing the fact that UGA is an institution that is rooted in racism. It has a very, very dark history that is often unaddressed, and that is something that we need to be able to address to move forward, or there is no point in even trying to implement change. So that is first thing that we have to do. We hope to do that by making sure that we're advocating for the implementation of a diversity education seminar that is analogous to the first year Odyssey seminar that will be required for students to take when they enter UGA. That way, students all have the same level of diversity education, and we can make sure that all students are on the same page regarding that. In addition to that, again, in my conversations with Erin Benson, the director of the Disability Resource Center, she talked to me about how she really wanted to maintain that direct contact between students that are affected with disabilities and her, along with the people that are around her, to create a more accessible space for everyone on campus. So part of that we want to do is make sure there's required closed captioning on all UGA branded accounts. We also want required alternative text on all UGA social media posts to make sure that it's accessible for all students as possible. And also, in addition to that, we want to make sure that Panhellenic and IFC have a more comprehensive diversity, equity, and inclusion module than the one that they already have, and that is more specific to the Athens community. So that way people in those spaces make sure that they, it's a predominantly white and it's a predominantly, high income space. So we want to make sure that they are educated on the harmful effects of those institutions, as well as uplift the National Panhellenic Council and the Multicultural Greek Council, because those communities have historical goals that really push forward the narrative of making sure that people of color who are also in Greek life but are doing really good work also exist, and making sure that they get those equitable opportunities that are often not afforded to them simply because there's a predominantly people of color centered spaces.
Great, thank you. Next, we have the Voice ticket.
Thank you. So, diversity, equity, and inclusion is something that I've been passionate about from the moment I set foot on campus. And it's actually the reason I got involved in SGA in the first place. And it's the reason I currently serve as the Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion Chair in the Senate. So it's something I think about every day because, not only that, I don't know if you notice this, but I'm Black. So, it's something that I live, and it's something that I live through every day. And me and my friends talk about it every day because it is our experience. It's not something we can take off. It's not something we can remove. So in talking to my friends and organizations about EDI, it is not just a platform point, it is our entire campaign, because we know that these things are intersectional issues. And these are things that are prevalent in every aspect of our campus. And when you're a student with a marginalized identity, when you decide to come to a predominantly white institution, you recognize that you will be fighting some sort of systemic oppression and racism in every aspect of your college experience. But in talking to these organizations, the biggest aspect is visibility. Everyone said the same thing. Everyone had different goals and ideas, but the one thing they said was visibility. Because I've been in these conversations before, and when you're sitting in a room full of other Black men talking about the Black male experience, you're kind of just agreeing and you're not really having a dialogue. So when we have NPHC organizations, when we have organizations in MSP, when we have organizations in the LGBT Resource Center, the big thing is collaboration. Right now, there's no collaboration and everyone is existing in their bubbles, and SGA will facilitate, with our administration, we'll facilitate this transition through our student ambassador town halls and our SGA committees to make sure that we have this constant dialogue and this connection between different groups on campus, because we need to pop these bubbles. We need to break these barriers so that students can come in and actually learn from each other, because right now we're not doing that. And I'm sick and tired of UGA being reactive and not proactive when it comes to these things, because there's been a racist incident every semester I've been on campus, and I'm about sick and flipping tired of it. So we need to go ahead and get in there and do something about it.
Thank you. And finally, the Bridge ticket.
So in terms of minoritized communities on campus, we just first want to acknowledge that diversity is about race, it is about sexuality, it is about ethnicity and nationality, and it is just so important. And there's a huge gap between minoritized communities and representation on UGA's campus. First of all, we want to make sure that there's a diversity in the tenure and hiring process at the University of Georgia, because I've been here for 2 years. I've had one Black professor, and many of my students have not had one. When prospective employees are arriving at the University of Georgia, they should be able to walk into the interview room or on Zoom and see representation within their employers, because diversity at the University of Georgia is not just about having a diverse student body, but about having a diverse faculty as well. And students should be able to walk into a classroom and see a professor who looks like them. So that is the first ways that we want to make sure that minoritized communities are being given representation on campus, but also the LGBTQ community. And after speaking to a lot of my friends in this community, it has come to our attention that at the University Health Center, there are some healthcare professionals who are trained to care for members of the LGBTQ community, but not all healthcare professionals are. And our administration wants to make sure that every single healthcare professional at the University Health Center has been trained with the LGBT health training and certificate program, so that a member of that community can walk into the UHC and know that they are receiving care from someone who understands them. In terms of international students, which I'm really passionate about, International Orientation Week is a week long. And as I mentioned earlier, after meeting with Director Justin Jeffrey, we want to make sure that this week can be expanded, because imagine arriving in America and having a week to adjust to going to school here. It is so difficult. We want to make sure that that week is expanded and that students know how to register for classes, can learn a bit of English. That is something that is so important to me, and I'm excited to work on that in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. My last question for the vice presidential candidates, again, of all 3 tickets, is as follows. Many students have been advocating for the UGA administration to take a stronger stance against racial injustice through actions such as renaming buildings on campus and further acknowledging the university's history with slavery. What role do you see your administration playing in amplifying the voices of these students and advocating alongside them? We will begin with the bridge ticket, followed by the belong ticket, and then the voice ticket. You each have 2 minutes.
Thank you, Marshall. Racial injustice has been at the forefront of our campaign's mind since we started working together. And UGA has come a long way, but we have such a long way to go. There are students at this campus who do not feel represented, and they do not feel safe. They do not feel as if they have a place where they can speak up or where they matter, and we will not stand for it, and we want to change that. The renaming building process is something that so many students are frustrated about, because this is an important moment in our history, and we deserve the right to know what is going on in those meetings. So we will hold administration accountable and make sure that students are aware of what is going on. I also want to say that today is a really important day, because today is when the Linen-Town resolution was approved after months of hard work by the Athens community and Mariah Parker. We as an administration are passionate about making sure that the University of Georgia acknowledges its role in this story, and that every single student here understands that the UGA had a part in this story and understands the Linen-Town legacy. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll now move to the belong ticket.
I can tell you that as a Black woman, it frustrated me to my core this past year when UGA would put out statements that were just not actually reflective or towards the African-American or just Black community. It felt really proactive. They weren't proactive. It felt very reactive, and it seemed like they weren't actually trying to support the 8% of Black students that are at our campus. And part of that is the fact that there is a whole school of journalism called after Henry Grady, who is historically a white supremacist. And that frustrates me that there are many buildings on this campus that if I go into, I have to be reminded that if this were over 60 years ago, I would not have been allowed in this building. And the building is originally named after someone that hated my existence. So that frustrates me to my core. Something that I really, really, really want to advocate for is that diversity, equity, and inclusion seminar that I talked about earlier, because I want more students to be aware that what they say, what they do, it affects a large portion of the population. That is something that UGA needs to work on a lot. Statements are very cute and great and amazing and everything, but one thing that the current SGA administration did is that they created a statement from students, and we want to elaborate on that. You create a statement. After you create a statement, you hold a meeting with the people that were affected by that community, and you talk about, okay, how can we solve this? And then after you talk about how you can solve it, you have a meeting about execution. And that is how you address issues like that. But that will continue to not be done until we listen to Black students on this campus who are continually affected by the inaction by UGA administration every day. The Presidential Task Force on Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion is a great initiative that was started. I have a lot of friends that are on there and they're doing really great work, but we need to continue those relationships because that is how we're going to change our campus, by talking more to the 3,500 Black students out of 32,000 that are here and are affected by the experience of Blackness every single day.
Thank you. And finally, we have the voice ticket.
Marshall, I want to keep it real with you. 2 minutes isn't enough time because I got too many things to say, but I'm gonna keep it short. I'm a Black student, and like I said before, there's been racist events every year and every semester that I've been on this campus. And let me tell you something, every time I get more and more angry. So first thing I want to say is Black Lives Matter, because it seems that the university is a little bit afraid to say that at some time. So I'll say it. And I want to touch on a point about renaming buildings for a second, because I want to broaden the recognition of UGA's BIPOC alumni, because it seems that while Mary Frances Early and Hamilton Holmes and Charlene Hunter Galt are icons and very important students in university's history, they are not the only Black students that have come through here. They're not the only BIPOC students that have come through here. So if Richard B. Russell and Henry W. Grady can have several buildings named after them on this campus, why is it so hard for UGA to realize that they have more than 3 Black alumni on this campus? So we need to have some redress of that and actually have UGA actually recognize the contributions that their BIPOC alumni have made. And that's the first thing I want to do. And more than that, we got to hold administrators accountable. And that's not just having the tough conversation, but it means staying on them, not backing down until they do something. Because when we're talking about racial justice, this is lives that are at stake. We had Athens protesters protesting on behalf of Black Lives Matter, tear gas. You know what I'm saying? Like this is the sort of attitude that our administration and even the local government has when it comes to these things. And we need to do something about it. And students, we have a voice that is very powerful on this campus. And SGA, with leadership, we can actually organize that thing and actually get some things happening. You know what I'm saying? And we need to advocate for increased funding for our MPHC and MGC organization, because they do a lot of work in these communities. And we need to actually give them the ability to actually do more for these communities and actually advocate for these things, because these historically Black fraternities and sororities, these MGC fraternities and sororities, they belong here, and they are some of the first ones who actually advocated for the racial justice. And it's because of them and the ones who came before that I'm up here today. So those are some of the things we're going to do. And there's so many more, and I wish I had time to tell you.
Thank you. We're now going to move into a round of directed questions, specifically targeting the presidents of these 3 tickets. So we'll start with a question specifically for the bridge ticket. Your ticket is comprised of exclusively second-year students. Do you have the experience necessary to lead the Student Government Association? You have 2 minutes.
The first thing I want to do is dispel this connotation that younger students on this campus are incapable of leading, because that's not true. And for the freshmen, for the sophomores watching this today, I hope that our campaign is an inspiration to you to lead. Our campaign has always believed in the notion that the greatest wisdom can stem from the youngest person in a room. And our experiences, our respected organizations that we're involved in, has prepared us to lead this school. And I'll tell you one thing, Marshall, we're the only ticket that's gonna live through the policies that we enact. So once we're 3rd years, we're gonna have to live through the policies we enact when we're seniors here. So if that's not motivation enough, then I don't know what is. But let's dispel this notion that young people are incapable of leading, because we are. Last year, as I served as a senator at the Student Government Association, my cohort of first-year senators passed pieces of legislation that truly amplified voices in this campus. I myself passed a piece of legislation that allowed all 5 dining halls on campus to serve halal and kosher meal options, working with the head of Dining and Auxiliary Services, Executive Chef Jorge Noriega, making sure when those abortion rallies were happening, working with Senator Calvin Roush and Michael McDevitt, who I know are watching today and have a special place in my heart, making sure that students at UGA know before they come to campus what's actually going on. So let's dispel this notion. Let's dispel this notion. Thank you.
Thank you. My next question is for the Belong and Voice tickets. Your tickets are comprised exclusively of in-state students. How do you plan to address the needs and challenges of out-of-state and international students through your administration? We'll start with the Belong ticket and then the Voice ticket.
Thank you, Marshall. So change does not happen with 3 people. We recognize that this role, running for this office, is bigger than us. And so in order to answer that question, I'd love to take you back a little bit into the history of how our candidacy was created and how we got here. So before COVID-19, I actually had the opportunity to speak with Larry Cloud, who's the director of New Student Orientation, and we talked for a long time about what we can do to make this university better and what to make of how this university treats all of its students. He followed up with a phrase that has been the pinnacle of our campaign: anyone who truly loves this university knows there are things they can do to change it. And so from then on, our journey began. And so throughout the summer, as an orientation leader, I had the time and had the opportunity to understand students' needs, understand students' wants through this COVID-19 pandemic, with specific regard to students that are out of state. And so in this position, I was able to only continue to grow my passion and our passion for supporting students that we may not always represent. And so in that time, and in speaking to Shelley, I was actually recommended to speak to Shelley, and we had a nice 2-hour conversation about her experience at the University of Georgia and her experience as a woman of color within Greek life. And so 2 hours later, we were talking about her role, and she said, I want to do this to make a change so that people that look like me don't feel like they have to drop in their sorority, and that people that look like me feel like they're welcomed. And that goes for in-state students and out-of-state students and international students. And so through this process, I also had the opportunity to speak with Jasmine. Jasmine's been a friend of mine since freshman year. And so we've had these conversations talking about how we can continue to support students. And in our conversations with the 3 of us, we talked about our experiences, talked about the people that we've been able to work with and be able to lead. And so with that being said, we have been able to build a team that are able to represent those students. And we know that we cannot do it with the 3 of us, but with all of us, we can make it happen to truly make sure every student feels like they belong. Thank you.
Thank you. And we'll now turn it over to the Voice ticket to answer that same question.
All right. Well, Marshall, I think Christian Carlo and Connie French just peed their pants on their couches when you asked about transfer and international students. Because if there's one thing that I've learned with being friends with Christian since freshman year, it is that the transfer student and even out-of-state student experience is so much different than the in-state student experience. So some things I'd like to highlight are simply transportation. Something that we saw within the fall semester was that when the university decided to cancel our spring break, that impacted thousands of travel plans to where students were not able to get refunds on flights, were not able to even come back to the university at the same time because they would need to reschedule their flight even coming back into Georgia. So I think there's a lot more that the administration could be doing to be more accessible and also inclusive to these students that can't change their plans at the drop of a dime. But at the same time, I'd also like to extend the same platform for our students living in South Georgia. I think a lot of times we forget how big the state of Georgia actually is and how hard it is for these students to change their travel plans as well. So what our administration is seeking to do is have accessible transportation to the airport that would be free of charge, paid for by SGA, so that students would not have to worry about how they would get to the airport or to any mode of transportation. In addition, we would also like to push our administration to have a grace period for changing our academic calendar. This means that when we decide to cancel our spring breaks and have mental wellness days, which we do want to continue advocating for, mental wellness days are much needed, especially during campaign week. We want to make sure that the administration is giving students ample time to make rearranged plans. This is definitely something we want to fight for coming up for fall 2021, because no student should have to worry about how they're going to get home to see their families for the holidays when the administration decides to change their plans at last minute. So our administration is still fighting for out-of-state students, students within Georgia that still need transportation help, and especially transfer and international students. Thank you.
Thank you. So moving forward with the debate, my next 3 questions will be general questions, and they'll be directed specifically at the treasurers for each campaign. My first question is as follows. What steps will your administration take to go beyond UGA's campus and cultivate a relationship with the Athens community at large? We will start with the voice ticket, followed by bridge, and then belong. You each have 2 minutes.
Awesome. Okay. I would love to take this opportunity to highlight the amplify area of our policy. We recognize that there are numerous organizations on campus that do important work within the Athens community to minimize the potentially adverse effects the university can have. As a student government ticket, it is not our place to speak over organizations or take credit where credit is not due. Rather, we are here to listen and amplify the voices of these organizations that often go under-resourced, under-publicized, and undervalued. In order to do so, we will immediately enact a social media campaign that interviews and highlights valuable organizations on campus that have been and continue to make great strides in our community. For example, I served for 2 years as a head mentor at the Thomas Lay After School program, a program downtown funded in part by university funds, which serves underprivileged students who need a place to go after school ends. We do homework with them. We have themed days to teach them about cultural competence and STEM. And to this day, volunteering at Thomas Lay is one of the most important and heartwarming experiences I've had on campus. Even though Thomas Lay operates every weekday and is doing crucial work to minimize the achievement gap, hardly anyone on campus outside of the education community has heard of it. So it's organizations like Thomas Lay that are already working to improve the reputation of UGA and bridge the gap between the university and the community. And as an SGA officer, I would prioritize speaking with the members of university organizations and making sure their voices felt heard and honored on campus.
Thank you. Next is the bridge campaign.
I want to start off by saying that our campaign has already went beyond UGA campus and has already served the Athens community. Earlier today, we partnered with the Backpack Project, in which we helped in ensuring that homeless people have a backpack to lessen the burden of homelessness every day. That is the mission and that is the goal of the Backpack Project. We are here to care about the Athens community because Athens is our home first and then a college town second. We want to be able to help the Athens community by being able to expand Wi-Fi to community housing that is right next to Russell, to Creswell, to Brumby, to the Terry College of Business. We also want to be able to subsidize 5% of the Georgia Fund to create an Athens-Clarke County Fund. The Georgia Fund is created to address the pressing needs of our campus. And what is most pressing is worrying about the Athens community because, as I said before, Athens is our home and we need to be able to address the problem that is in the Athens community. Thank you.
Thank you. And finally, the belong ticket.
So the biggest thing that our administration wants to do is educate our students on how we affect the Athens-Clarke County community. It is so easy when you come to UGA to go to football games and classes and not step 5 feet past the arch and see what impact we have on the Athens-Clarke County community. I want to address that UGA does in fact have an impact on the ACC, negative impact on the ACC, considering they were only allowed to return to school 2 days ago due to our returning to campus. I'm sure many of us have seen that there is government funded housing right next to Creswell, and we continue to not assist them in sustainable ways. And we want to change that. Students often do not know what impact we have, and our administration will strive to educate our peers. We intend to partner with organizations that have outreach to ACC communities such as Whatever It Takes, Young Life, Oasis Tutoring, Impact UGA, and the Office of Engagement, Leadership, and Service. We want to provide intentional and sustained support to the Athens community. Specifically as treasurer, I am excited to roll out and continue and amplify the small club allocations process and make it more accessible to students. Oftentimes, small clubs do not know that this exists, and a lot of these small clubs advocate for the community of Athens. And we just want to continue to support the Athens-Clarke community through all these steps.
Thank you. My next question is again for all 3 tickets. What steps will your administration take to expand access to mental health resources on campus? We will start this time with the Belong ticket, followed by Voice, and then Bridge.
First, I want to start off, according to the American Psychological Association and Eastern Colorado Healthcare System, 41.6% of students struggle with anxiety, 36.4% of students struggle with depression, and 17% of students struggle with PTSD. To open up the stage, Jasmine Carter and I have distinct situations of mental health, and we believe that every student should have the resources to combat these regardless of what they're struggling with. Oftentimes, people do not know that the counseling and psychiatric services at UGA is intended only for a transition phase and not for a long-term mental health services. And they often encourage students to reach beyond UGA resources. I specifically had a hard time reaching out and finding out resources through CAPS, but I noticed that CAPS had a section on their website for outside resources in the Athens community, and that's how I found my therapist. And I owe it to CAPS. We also want to expand CAPS. I know they have limited ability right now, but we do want to expand that in the future. And right now it's way more important than ever because of COVID. According to an NCBI article on the correlation between coronavirus and mental health, 71% of students indicated that they have an increased stress and anxiety due to the pandemic. And now more than ever, again, students need the access to these resources. A new thing that CAP started was therapy assistance online service, which includes 150 brief, effective, and educational sessions covering over 50 common topics and skills related to mental health, wellness, and substance use issues. We really want to amplify these resources.
Thank you. Next is the Voice campaign.
Okay, well, first, in any discussion of mental health, I think it's important that we emphasize we are coming to you as humans first, students second, and candidates third. With the pandemic, it's become increasingly obvious that people who have never struggled before with mental wellness are being newly affected. Lots of students are not aware of how to get resources or how to reach out, even if they want to. Our mental health platform is the most comprehensive of all tickets and is one of our greatest and most personal priorities. Our most urgent goal is to reallocate student health fees to the mental health services on campus. By reallocating funds, we will be able to better equip CAPS with more resources to expand and provide for all students on campus, regardless of their history with mental health. Some examples of those resources will include to create a concierge service within CAPS that will actively respond to students to give them exactly the resources they need, whether that be recommendations for off-campus counseling, information about insurance acceptances at various locations, or a fast-track immediate counseling on campus. Additionally, we will support a 24/7 mental wellness hotline for confidential advice, something that can be accessed through phone call or text message to provide an accessible option for students who may be experiencing a mental health crisis where they are unable to speak out loud, such as a panic attack. Frankly, I'm proud that mental wellness is at the forefront of our platform, especially as mental wellness has continued to be pressured by the lack of vacation days or poorly scheduled instructional breaks. Having listened to students across campus, we will advocate for an appropriate, well-timed fall break in order to support the mental wellness and motivation of all students and faculty. The simple fact is our students need help. A lot of us are hurting right now, and we need the Voice platform enacted immediately to serve and uplift our students. In order to end the stigma on mental health, we will continue to listen to our students and peers, have hard conversations, and create immediate real-time solutions to support our Bulldog community.
Thank you. And finally, the Bridge ticket.
I want to start off by saying that we are not health professionals. We are humans. Everyone goes through mental health situations. I struggled with mental health last semester. Every student has struggled with mental health last semester. And we are here. Our campaign is here to help in light of that. We are trying to spread more awareness about the Let's Talk series that CAPS holds, trying to spread more awareness about the drop-in hours that CAPS also holds as well, trying to expand the drop-in times and the drop-in time that they have throughout the week from 2 to 2 to more, trying to make sure that we also have wellness representatives in each residence hall, which the current administration is trying to work on, and we will try to further that work. We will also work to try and help graduate students, because while we all focus on undergraduate students, we have to remember that graduate students are a part of our student body. We have to be able to work with graduate students in helping them get the resources that they need in terms of mental health. We talked to Shayla Lee, the president of the Graduate Student Association, and she expressed her concerns about how graduate students like herself were not able to receive the counseling service that they received before with better help. And we want to make sure that we reinstate that and that we help with that as well. We also want to help in making sure that sexual assault victims have a sexual assault advocacy night, in which victims will share their story and be able to also have a support group in light of mental health and be able to share the resources that they had in order to go through that experience. Thank you.
Thank you. And my final question for all three treasurers is as follows. What will your administration do to advance sustainability initiatives on campus? We will begin with the bridge ticket, followed by belong, and then voice.
Concerning sustainability, our campaign hopes to be sure that we have a bicycle exchange program. I remember earlier last semester, there was the Bulldog bike share, and I would always ride the bike because I don't have a car here on campus. But yeah, I would always use the bike because it was just accessible and it was just easy to use. Now that they have taken it away, it has taken away some students' transportation here on campus. Of course, there is the bus, but we need to bring back the bikes. We're trying to have a bicycle exchange program in which we will work with local organizations and local businesses to make sure that students can be able to check out a bike and be able to use these bikes wherever they are. We also want to return back to plastic bins at the dining halls. It is a known fact that using the bins that we're using now, it's not sustainable. It's not helpful at all. And we talked to Chrissy Tweedy, head of sustainability, and she has expressed her concern that the connection between dining and auxiliary services and the Office of Sustainability is not good. And we are working to be able to foster a community and foster a connection between those two offices and those two departments, being able to make sure that they are facilitating a great relationship and that we are returning back to these plastic bins to be more sustainable. We will also try to make sure that we give out free reusable bags and free reusable water bottles. UGA gives out masks to students this year. They gave it out to each and every student. And we want to be sure that we are being more reusable and that we are being more sustainable by giving out free reusable bags and free reusable water bottles. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, the same question is for the belong ticket.
So we had the opportunity to speak with two members of the Office of Sustainability, Nate Shear and Andrew Schoppenhorst, to get some insight into sustainability on our campus and to educate ourselves on the subject. A lot of our research and knowledge stems from the 2020 UGA Sustainability Report that provides specific and measurable outcomes in sustainability. What they've told us is that they need data, specific data, to create their change that they want to implement. We want to use SGA's platform to create surveys that will provide that data to the Office of Sustainability so that they can push forward with initiatives that are already in place and that they are striving to go towards. We aim also to help them weave in sustainability course requirements as UGA students. There's also one last thing that they have already is an alternative transportation program, which basically outlines that if you use sustainable ways to get into campus, such as walking, biking, busing, we can get up to 22 days of free parking per year. You just have to sign up through the website. That's something that many students do not know about, and we really want to amplify those resources and continue to work with the Office of Sustainability.
Thank you. And finally, the voice ticket.
I would like to begin by saying that we recognize sustainability is a much deeper, more complicated issue than just recycling. And our attitude about sustainability is crucial to our innovation as a university and student body. As an institution, it's a collective action problem that must be addressed from all sides, both administration and students. When students pay their mandatory green fee every semester, we expect it to be put toward productive, impactful, sustainable missions. As a ticket, we are very excited to partner with the Office Office of Sustainability to continue and uplift the wonderful work that they have already accomplished. One area in particular we are passionate about is reducing and managing game day waste. Every Saturday during the football season, our Bulldog Nation creates tens of thousands of pounds of waste, all in good fun, but nonetheless a heavy burden for our land to bear. To minimize this impact, we will create clear signage about what is recyclable and what is not for every single recycling can, provide well-labeled compost bins within the stadium for food waste, and source streamers made from recycled materials to maintain spirit while also protecting the future of our town. Beyond football games, we will continue to advocate for accessible compost bins throughout campus for food waste and biodegradable materials with explicit signage about what is appropriate to compost. Additionally, we will prioritize funds from student transportation fees to go towards expanding our fleet of electric buses with the goal of implementing all electric university vehicles by 2025. Ultimately, we will continue to have conversations and build relationships with students in sustainability organizations that have fought so hard to see change on our campus, uplifting them, amplifying their voices, and bringing their greatest concerns and priorities to administration. We will fight for sustainability progress, and I'm so proud to be on a ticket that cares so deeply about the longevity of our university family.
Fantastic, thank you. We will now move into a round again of directed questions, and these will be directed specifically at the presidents of each ticket, and we'll ask one question at each ticket. So this question is specifically for the voice ticket. On your website, under the Engage section of your platform, one of your ticket's priorities is to, quote, make SGA casual again. What do you mean by this statement, and how will it benefit the student body? You have 2 minutes.
Definitely. So I think as a member of SGA, I've been in SGA for all 3 years of my UGA experience, and it's definitely very formal, all the way down from Senate, where you have to wear professional clothing, but we'd also like to shout out the Professional Clothing Closet for helping students find free, accessible professional clothing. But also to cabinet. We have less or over 30 members within our cabinet, but that is not enough to represent our student body. So making SGA casual again means adding more people into the conversation. And one way that we want to do this is by creating cabinet subcommittees. This would be subcommittees directed towards specific organizations. I'm also a member of HEROES, and I know that HEROES would greatly benefit from having a liaison within SGA. And that's just one example of an organization that would have a liaison within a subcommittee. This would also help to expand the work that SGA is already doing by having more hands on deck. Something we're also really proud to add to our platform is within these subcommittees, we would also have 4 directed Greek life subcommittees for all 4 councils. This would mean that the councils would have direct liaisons within SGA so that they could directly address their problems. Something that I'm really proud to say is that MGC and NPHC need more representation, and this is how we're going to give it to them. So that's just one way that SGA would become more casual, but also potentially opening it up to having dressed down policies. So not requiring professional clothing to attend our meetings. Something that I've definitely noticed that within cabinet we do is we're not required to wear professional clothing, and it definitely increases the emotions and work ethic that we have, I believe. Just because when you're at your most comfortable, you're doing your best work. And so that's something that we'd like to do, but also creating FYP transfer programs. So if you're a transfer student for your first year, unfortunately, you're not able to apply to FYP. So with our transfer student program, you would still be able to apply and have that freshman SGA experience.
Fantastic, thank you. My next question is specifically for the Belong Ticket president. One of the unique proposals in your platform is the creation of a mandatory first-year diversity seminar analogous to the FYOS program in collaboration with the Office of Institutional Diversity. Can you provide more detail on this specific program and how you would plan to implement it during your time in office? You have 2 minutes.
I would love to. Thank you, Marshall. So this diversity education seminar is so near and dear to our heart and in our conversations of what our values are. One of them being inclusivity and making sure all students feel like they belong. And we think this is so critical to make sure that all students have this diversity education seminar to be aware of the ramifications of negative actions, but also just being inclusive to all students. And so in terms of how that's going to be implemented, It means working with the Office of Institutional Diversity and using the students and creating surveys and all of those fun things that SGA does to get that data and that research to collaborate with the Office of Institutional Diversity to kind of roll this out. There are already some beginnings of this going with the previous administrations, and so we want to build on what has already been done to make this happen. We recognize that change doesn't always happen in 1 year, and University of Georgia is this 236-year-old ship going in one direction. In some ways, we want it to go that way. And this is part of that. And we recognize that maybe it won't happen this year, but if it happens in 2 years, 3 years, it's going to happen. But that starts with the conversations, the intentional conversations, creating data and making sure that this happens. Thank you.
Great, thank you. And my next question is specifically for the Bridge Ticket president. One of the unique proposals in your platform is the creation of an email cutoff time for professors and students. You advocate that emails should not be sent past 10 p.m. How would you implement this change within the structure of the Student Government Association? And do you have the authority to mandate that professors adopt this change? You have 2 minutes.
Marshall, thank you for the question. Look, we as an administration, we understand the stress of online classes, and it's taken a toll on us. I obviously, the switch from being able to go in an in-person environment versus an online class load versus being there in person, it's tough. It's taken a toll on me. I'm sure it's taken a toll on other candidates on this Zoom tonight, and it's taken a toll on many folks watching this Zoom and this debate. And so as an administration, we plan to advocate for students' time to relax without the burden of professors' emails. At the end of the day, I don't want to be receiving an email at 11 o'clock p.m. saying, your homework is due this day, or you have additional homework to do, or anything like that. Now, we will fight for a mandated cutoff time at 10 o'clock p.m. for professors who aim to reach out to students to ease this burden. And I believe it's twofold in a way that, professors don't want to be receiving emails as well. They want to go home to their families. They have lives. And we want to be sure that we're advocating for both sides of the aisle. And we hope to encourage professors and students to utilize the Outlook scheduled email setting within our UGA email accounts to ensure that we are utilizing all the resources that this great university has given us. And I'll tell you this, in terms of what the University of Georgia Student Government Association can and cannot do, it is up to our platform and it's up to the elected leaders that you all enact to bridge the gaps within the university that seek to divide us. And this goes for any platform point that our respective tickets have. So it is up to ours,
really appreciate
our organization to do so. Thank you.
Thanks. All right. My final 2 questions for the debate this evening will be asked to all campaigns. And again, they will be asked directly to the presidents. My first question is as follows. How do you hope to build upon the previous SGA administration's legacy? And what is one thing you would do differently? We will start with the Voice campaign, followed by Bridge, and then Belong. You each have 2 minutes.
So I think Austin is going to get a big head when I start talking about our administration. But as I serve as the current chief of staff, I work directly with our current administration, and I believe they have done an amazing job with amplifying the voices of students currently. And that is something that we will seek to do throughout our administration. Just to touch on a couple points that we've worked on this year, our wellness reps, increasing COVID information, also with vaccines. So those are all things that we would like to continue working on. But really, I think what they've done an amazing job with is just making sure students' voices are heard. And that was an amazing foundation for where we will begin. So when we put out statements, as Unite did, or Austin's administration did, I think they really made students feel like they have a home on their campus. But what we seek to do as an administration is go further from those statements, making sure that students feel like we're doing active work beyond the statements, so that students know that we are actively seeking out these problems and working as an administration towards bettering our campus. I definitely don't want to say that we are an administration 2.0 from the current administration. I've definitely learned a lot as chief of staff, and I'm very grateful for my position. But it's definitely taught me that as we move into the fall, where COVID might not be at the forefront of our minds anymore, that there are more problems that we seek to address. Starting with student fee transparency. It's time to get back to the money, I think, and really know where we're putting our money when we pay our student fees. So that's definitely something that we would seek to add, but also just increasing the transparency of our administration. This was something that COVID really put a damper on, just because we are focusing on other things. We're focusing on the students' health. That's at the forefront of our administration currently. But under a voice administration, we would definitely seek to continue health-related policies. But beyond COVID, we're talking mental health, we're talking about HIV testing, we're talking about STD testing, we're talking about much more than COVID. So I think our administration has a very unique position where I can continue the work that Awesome has done, and I'm so grateful for, but make it our own.
Great, thank you. Next, the bridge ticket.
The first thing that I did when I decided to run for president was call Awesome Ahmed and ask him, what do you want to see change within our school and our campus beyond your administration? And I have a lot of respect for him. I have a lot of respect for Cheryl Kopong, who nominated me to be a part of the University Council Curriculum Committee, and Carson Cook, who is one of my brothers. And so I have a lot of respect for that ticket and how they are unapologetically themselves. And I also have a lot of respect for the tickets before them. Rachel Byers, who I've spoken to about what she wants to see change. Amishadai Grandjean, who I've spoken to about what he wants to see change. And so I have a lot of respect for the legacy that all of these past administrations have left behind, but it's time to move forward. It's time to build beyond that. And what we're currently working on is to make sure that SGA is more accessible to students that want to be involved. You know, I asked Awesome, what is one piece of advice that you give me? And he said it's to be unapologetically yourselves. So yes, we understand that SGA is the voice of every Bulldog, but at the end of the day, I want to be there for Bulldogs who don't have a platform on campus to stand on. For Bulldogs who can't afford proper meals, a meal plan, that go home every day to no food for dinner. I want to be there for Bulldogs who don't have health insurance and can't go to the University Health Center to get the proper funding that they need for that. And so I want to be there for every single Bulldog. Our administration wants to be there for every single Bulldog, and we believe that we have the capability and the willpower to do so. Thanks for the question, Marshall.
Thank you. And lastly, the belong ticket.
Thank you, Marshall, very much. And so our executive administration actually has had the opportunity to speak with all three members of the last two tickets and 2 of the 3 years before. And so we took that opportunity to truly understand where SGA has been, get a great understanding of where we need to go and what we want to see. From there, I'd like to say there's always room for improvement. We continue to grow. I think I can speak for everyone on the stage by saying we all stand against hate, bigotry, and any form of unwelcoming behavior on UGA's campus. In past SGA administrations, specifically Unite and Awesomes, have done so well in making sure students know that we support them, but we plan to do more. As Jasmine mentioned earlier, we have a 3-step process that we plan to implement when things go wrong. We recognize that we're living in a world where there's some uncertainty there, but we know that we need to stand firm to support students on this campus. And that 3-step process starts with a statement, conversing with our friends that are leaders in those communities, talking about what they need, what they want. Second step is at the bottom of that statement, we say, we're meeting 1 week from today. We invite all these members of this community to be heard. We want to hear you. We want to recognize your struggles, and we want to think about what we can do about it. At the end of that meeting, we provide all of the things that SGA can do within our power to change that. 1 week from then, we make it happen. We have another meeting to talk about what we can actually do as a student body to support these students. And sometimes students don't always agree with administration's decisions, and that is okay. We are here to be that voice of the students. We're here to address those student concerns. And, sometimes this goes against administration. That is okay. We are here to stand firm and be actively anti-racist for students and continue that tradition from what previous administrations have done. And to hit the second part of your question, one thing that we hope to do more is visibility. We recognize that the COVID-19 pandemic did inhibit Unite from being present, but we commit to being there. I'm going to have a meal plan next year. I understand that it's important for students to just see me. I remember my freshman year seeing Amisha and Snelling and being like, wow, He's my president. And we have made that commitment to be there and be there for students, make sure they all know that they belong. Thank you.
Thank you. And the final question of the evening, again, will go to all three presidents. If your administration wins the SGA election, what is the first challenge you would address as an executive ticket? We'll start with belong, then voice, and then bridge. You each have 2 minutes.
Thank you, Marshall. I think that starts with the transition. I think a lot of the problem of previous administrations is that there hasn't been consistency within the transformation of where we're going. And so with that being said, we're so excited to tackle that challenge by creating our cabinet and creating a cabinet that is inclusive to all and making sure that SGA changes its whole vision. We have a vision for SGA, and that is much different than I think the previous misconception is of SGA, that in the conversations that we've had, the vast majority of students have said, I have no idea what SGA does. And I don't blame them, because there just has not been that transparency, I think. And of course, the COVID-19 pandemic has those inhibitors, but we commit to having that change of SGA from an inward-facing organization to an outward-facing organization. The entire premise of our platform and our name, Belong, is so that students know that SGA is there for them and they feel supported in their struggles and their triumphs. And so with that being said, we hope to collaborate with organizations and make SGA this outward-facing org that goes to those meetings and goes to talk to them and say, hey, we're here for you. And not necessarily being this SGA that's like, we can do all of this and we're gonna do all of this and we're gonna overshadow you. We're here to listen and learn and support. And so I think that's gonna be the challenge that we face, is changing that vision of SGA and changing that momentum from this inward-facing to an outward-facing org that truly allows us to support students and make them feel welcomed on this campus. Thank you.
Thank you. And next we have the voice ticket.
I'd say if COVID wasn't a thing and we won, we're all going to Disney World, but unfortunately we can't say that. But something that you're getting out of our administration is experience. So we're hitting the ground running. You don't have a learning curve with the voice administration. You have change immediately. So taking office in April looks like this. Starting off the first week, increasing student fee transparency. The information is already accessible. It's already public information. All we have to do is sit down as SGA and put it into an easily digestible form so that students know where their money is going. We're talking week 1. We're not even talking having our name tags printed yet. This is for students going into their summer tuition payment, knowing exactly what they're getting out of that and knowing where their money's going. Then from there, moving into the fall, moving into August, we want students to know where their money is going, but into a different place. So we want to increase student fee money allocation towards mental health resources, towards these dining hall initiatives that we have, towards these Bulldog Basic initiatives that we have. Also shout out period UGA. But we really want to make sure that starting out in August, when students are paying these fees initially, that they know where they're going. So I think one of the strengths of our administration is there is no fun summer. We're off to work right away. And I can say that with my chest because as current chief of staff, Austin and I have already been talking about his administration, you know, like in cabinet during our weekly cabinet meetings. So I understand his position fairly well. We both run our breakout session together. So a transition there would look really seamless, very smooth, so that students are seeing immediate effects. You don't have to wait until August of 2021 to see our administration in action, but you will see us on the forefront of students' minds in April, so that when our new Bulldogs come to campus, that Will Harris has seamlessly transferred to the campus as an OL, that they will have the best possible experience because we've already done the work and we're already there for them.
Thank you. And finally, the bridge ticket.
On day 1, we want to make all students of any and all identities feel like they have a home on this campus. And our administration is passionate about making everyone feel welcome by emphasizing the importance of diversity, equity, and inclusion. You know, our administration on day 1 will acknowledge how Black and Indigenous people of color, specifically members of the African American and Black communities on campus, have been disproportionately targeted by racist and hateful acts. And as SGA, we can't stand for this. And we'll make sure that we're going to make a bold stance highlighting that we need to hold UGA accountable for denouncing racism in all forms. But we also know that we're still living under the COVID-19 pandemic. And we understand how this kind of is twofold with minority communities, because we understand that it disproportionately affects them. And so we will work day one to make sure that folks are receiving the vaccine. Folks are, if they're uncomfortable with it, getting help from the University of Health Center about the information that they need, and ensuring that this university is a safe and welcoming home for every student, no matter their background or race.
Thank you. Now, each campaign will be given 2 minutes for closing statements. We will begin with the Voice campaign, then the Bridge campaign, and finally the Belong campaign. You have 2 minutes.
So a lot was said here tonight, but I want to make one thing clear. This is more than just a campaign. It's a community. It's a team focused on building and bringing student voices together and making not only SGA, but campus a more inclusive space. In order to bridge the gap and for students to feel that they belong, you first need to have a voice, because it's one thing for someone to tell you that you belong here, but it's another thing to actually feel that you belong here. And I know that I belong here because of the sacrifices and the contributions of those who came before me. And I want to do my part to run my race so that those who come after me can have a better UGA. Because they say it's a marathon and not a sprint, but to me, it's more like a relay race. You know, you run your race, you run it hard, and you do what you can, because we aren't here for that long. We're only here for maybe 4, maybe 5, maybe 6 years. And our administration term is only about 9 months, you know? So we got to run our race and we got to run it hard so that we can pass that thing off to the next person. And while we might not be the ones who cross the finish line, we had an important part in winning that race so that we can all eat and we can all win together. The issues facing us today are so large that SGA alone can't handle them, you know? But however, together by joining with our campus community and the people and the organizations that do this work year round, SGA, along with the rest of campus, can actually make this place a better place. You know, we can hold our administration accountable. We can bring student groups together and mend relationships between them. We can continue to actually put on and make UGA a more inclusive and a better space for everybody. And all it takes is your voice. So I want to thank everyone here today. I want to thank all the tickets and the candidates. I want to thank Marshall. I want to thank Ian. I want to thank GPR. I want to thank even my boy JH down there for being here tonight and hosting this wonderful debate so that we can all, you know, hear what everyone has to say. But with nothing else to say, I just want to say go Voice.
Thank you. Next, we'll turn it over to the Bridge ticket for their closing statement.
I want to start by thanking everyone who has attended this debate today, specifically the candidates for each ticket. Thank you to the moderators. It is no lie that every single one of us has lost something this past year. Every single one of us has felt disconnected, isolated, and distant, searching for something to bring us together. Now more than ever, it is imperative that we acknowledge our differences. We see the many gaps on campus that seek to divide us and that are prevalent to all of us. There is a gap between students and SGA, between UGA and the Athens community, between student life and essential resources, between UGA and sustainability, and there is a gap in how minoritized communities are represented. But do you know what is so great about a bridge? It is tangible and visible, and when the foundations are strong, it can last a lifetime. As UGA celebrates the 60th anniversary of this institution being desegregated, we recognize that Charlene Hunter-Gall and Hamilton Holmes were two of the first students to build a bridge at UGA, and their work is definitely not done. Let's continue to finish the work that they started. At this time, the gaps are only getting bigger, but change is coming. Over this campaign, many people have asked me, what is leadership to you? And you know, people think leadership is about being on a pedestal, being in charge, making the big decisions, winning. When in reality, leadership is all about humbly serving others, serving those we love, serving those who we don't know, serving those who can't serve themselves. And service is not singular, and change does not happen through one person. It's about a community coming together. We are all here, yearning to move towards change, across a bridge that spans the distance between what we are and what we could be. Let's build it stronger together. Thank you.
Thank you. And finally, the Belong ticket. You have 2 minutes.
First and foremost, I would like to take the time to thank Marshall for moderating the debate, the other 2 tickets, our fantastic staff, and everyone for being in attendance tonight. As I said earlier, we are here because of a vision a vision to transform the Student Government Association into an organization that actively uses its voice to represent the university comprised of over 29,000 undergraduate and 7,000 graduate students. We have intentionally prepared for our role through over 250 meetings with campus leaders and administrations to truly hear students' needs and desires. In these conversations, we have confirmed that the vast majority of students simply are just not aware of what SGA does or can do. And it is our commitment to ensure that students both feel supported and uplifted by the Student Government Association. We recognize that this role is bigger than us, and change, as I said earlier, does not happen with 3 people. Jasmine, Shelley, and I are prepared through our diverse skill set and involvement to allow us to inspire change at the University of Georgia. Our administration commits to collaborate with organizations to speak out against injustices and advocate for marginalized communities beyond simply acknowledging our students' discontent. This has been one of the toughest years in recent history. Students on this campus are struggling, and even more, students on this campus are hurting. But above all, students on this campus are stronger than they know. Our platform and passions revolve around that last fact. We will collaborate so that students know that we support them. We will advocate for students who do not yet know the power that they hold. And we will amplify students and their organizations so that they know that they belong here at the University of Georgia. From the beginning, we've made the commitment to make sure every single one of our platform points is achievable, and we commit to making them happen. Lastly, I would like to take the time to thank the student body for allowing us 3 to have the opportunity to feel like we belong to something greater. We recognize that not every student may feel like they belong, but in our administration, we will commit to helping students find a home at the University of Georgia. We commit to making sure that you belong, and further, that we all belong. Thank you.
Thank you. That concludes our debate for this evening. Thank you all for coming out to the SGA debate. I want to say thank you again to all of the candidates who are running as part of all 3 executive tickets for participating in the event. Voting opens on Monday, February 22nd at 8 a.m. and continues through Wednesday, February 24th at noon. If you are interested in learning more about the organizations that sponsored this event, please visit georgiapoliticalreview.com and sga.uga.edu. Thanks, and have a great rest of your evening, everybody.